So, like me, you guys are probably wondering, where are the weeks going? It is already week 6 for the NFL Power Rankings. So let's go ahead and get into it with the number 5 team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, they fall from number 2 all the way down to number 5 with losing to the Colts. Now, a lot of people will say, why do you still have the Chiefs in the top 5 for week 6? It's easy. Patrick Mahomes is the MVP, and he's just like LeBron James. He is literally dragging the Kansas City Chiefs to the playoffs. Once again, we know the Chiefs are worse on defense. They're without their, I think it's Sammy Watkins, as well as their LaShawn McCoy. So now Andy Reid does have them in a great position right now. They stand at 4-1. They lost their first game. Now, teams in the past who have lost, I have taken out of the top 5, but seeing as though the Kansas City Chiefs are still a top 5 caliber team with Patrick Mahomes in there at quarterback. If it was any other quarterback, I would probably in there behind the center, I would probably have to take them out of the top 5, but I'm not why I have them in this week's NFL Power Rankings for week 6. Now, when you look at the stats for the Kansas City Chiefs, when it comes to total yards per game, they are second at 444. They're first at 356 when it comes to passing yards per game. Rushing yards, we know what's happening. They're without Kareem Hunt and LaShawn McCoy, who they brought in to carry that load at running back. He is out as well. So, of course, their rushing game is going to suffer at this point in time. They're 25th at 88 yards a game. That is terrible. But seeing as though they're 4-1, you sit back and say, how the heck are these guys 4-1 without a running game? It's crazy. Points per game, 29.6. That puts them at 4th. So they're still top 5 when it comes to scoring. And that's all predicated around the offense, as well as Andy Reid and MVP Patrick Mahomes. Probably will be the first back-to-back MVP NFL quarterback that I've seen in my lifetime. So now when it comes to third down completion percentage, they rank 4th in the NFL at 48%. So they're almost at 50%. So that is good. That is deep, but it's not good. It is decent for a team missing some of their potent starters like Tyreek Hill. You're missing LaShawn McCoy, and I think Sammy Watkins is out with a hamstring injury as well. So that's crazy. Defense. This is their Achilles heel. This is what's going to get them out of the top 5 if they lose again next week. But hey, we'll wait until that day comes. 25th when it comes to opponents rushing, when it comes to opponents total yards per game, they rank 25th at 393. They give up 237 passing yards a game. That puts them at 13th. They give up 155 rushing yards. That puts them at 30th in the NFL. Man, I don't know what to say. Andy Reid, what are those guys doing? Just get this guy some potent defenders, and you can win a Super Bowl. You're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl with this team right here unless Patrick Mahomes has one of the greatest runs that we've ever seen since Nick Foles, who stepped in for Carson Wentz a couple of seasons. Justin Houston, who they let go, was wreaking havoc all night for this Indianapolis Colts. And granted, it was against his old team, so he had probably put a little bit more emphasis on getting to the quarterback than we all expected, but that's neither here nor there. They give up 22 points per game. That puts them at 14. So at least they're top 15 when it comes to holding opponents to where they want to hold them at. That's 22 points per game. Opponents' third down completion percentage against the Chiefs stands at 40% per game. That puts them at 17. So we're going to move right along to the number 4 team in this week's NFL Power Rankings. It's none other than the New Orleans Saints. When you got wins against the Seahawks, the Cowboys, and the Texans, and your only loss is to the Rams, who everybody expect to be a top-tier team, you got to put some respect on these guys' name. Now we're going to get into the stats of why I have them at number 4. I don't think they're better to the number 3, number 2, or number 1 team that is going to be above them, but I do think they are better than the Chiefs at this point in time. Now, total yards per game for these guys, 348. That puts them at 21st. Passing yards per game, 244. That puts them at 18. Their rushing yards, even with Alvin Kamara in the backfield, probably if they would have kept Mark Ingram, they would be a lot higher. But seeing as though they let Mark Ingram go to Baltimore, your running game is going to suffer just a little bit. 104.4 rushing yards per game. That puts them at 20 points per game. They're top 15 in the league at 14 with 23 points per game. Third down completion percentage at 43.8. That puts them at 11th in this season. Now, the defensive side of the ball, I would say I would round these out as probably top 20 in the league. It's not good, but it's not bad. Total yards, passing yards that they give up to opponents is 255. That puts them at 19th. Rushing yards they give up a game, it's 108. That puts them at 16th. Points per game they give up 23. That puts them at 18th. And their opponents' third down completion percentage is 38.7. That puts them at 14th. So at least they're better than the Chiefs at that aspect. So let's move right it on to number 3. None other than the Green Bay Packers in this week's NFL Power Rankings for Week 6. I was jumping on the Cowboys bandwagon because they was looking pretty good. Dak Prescott was looking like a max contract type quarterback, but they were humbled really quick these last couple of weeks. I think they're the victims of 2 straight losses, if I'm not mistaken, but it's neither here nor there. We got the Green Bay Packers beating the Bears, beating the Vikings, beating the Broncos. All excellent defensive teams. I don't care how bad they're playing right now. All 3 of those teams have so much talent on defense. And for Green Bay, with that anemic offense, but you still have Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay offense it's not better than the Chiefs. It's like in the middle of the pack, if I'm not mistaken. They lost to the Eagles. That's their only loss this season. They beat the Cowboys. So they're beating teams that no one expects them to beat. But with Aaron Rodgers, you're never out of the game. Also with Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. Total yards per game for the Green Bay Packers, 25th in the league at 337. Passing yards per game, that puts them at 17th for 244 total passing yards per game. The rushing yards, 93 a game. I forgot, who was that running back? I think it's Devontae Adams, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken. No, I am mistaken. You got Aaron Jones. That's their running back, number 33. Man, I don't know. That's kind of weird. Points per game, 23, puts them at 13. Their third down completion percentage is worse than the Saints as well as the Chiefs. If I'm not mistaken, they're at 28th in the league with Aaron Rodgers, but he is missing his number 1 wide. On to the defensive side of the ball for the Green Bay Packers. Total yards they give up to their opponents, 376, as 22nd in the league. They give up 238 passing yards per game, that's 14th. They give up 138 rushing yards per game, that is 27th. They give up 18 points per game in the league, that's 8th. So they're top 10 in that regard, so that is good. They give up 36% third down completion rating to their opponents, that puts them at 10. So we're going to get into the number 2 team in this week's NFL Power Rankings for week number 6, and you got to respect the Seattle Seahawks as well as MVP, the number 2 MVP candidate behind Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson. Let's get it. That's why they're playing decent, and I'm not going to hold anything against them guys at this point in time. Total yards for these guys, 7th in the league, 388. 265 rushing yards a game, that puts them at 8th. Passing yards per game, that puts them at 8th. 265 passing yards per game puts them at 8th. 122 rushing yards puts them at 12th. 26 points per game puts them at 8th. So you see the offense is there. The offense is pretty spectacular. The third down completion percentage is 35.6, that puts them at 22nd. And then we get into the defensive side of the ball. So we know the Seahawks brand. We missed the Legion of Boom. We wish they never broke up. We wish they would have ran the ball at the 1 yard line, but it didn't happen, and that's the reason why we saw them decline. Total yards per game, they give up 350, that puts them at 15. They give up 270 passing yards per game, that puts them at 27. They give up 80 rushing yards per game, that puts them at 5th in the league. Points per game, 23. They give up a game, that puts them at 19th. Third down completion percentage for their opponents is 31%. That puts them at 6th. So they're good in that regard. So the offense is there, the defense is there. If I'm not mistaken, I would say this team in the top 5 is probably, I could safely say they're the most balanced. Yeah, I can go on a limb and say the Seahawks are the most balanced team headed into week 6. Now the number 1 team in this NFL power ranking, in the same spot they had last week as the New England. We know the Patriots stand and play in the cupcake division with the New York Jets, the Dolphins. The list goes on. We know this. This is the reason why they're able to get into the Super Bowl each and every year. But when you get there, you gotta win. And these guys showing that they can win unless they go up against Nick Foles or Eli Manning. But then you gotta put the brakes on, you know, what I just said. But hey, that's neither here nor there. They beat the Steelers 33-3. They beat the Dolphins 43-0. They beat the Jets 30-14. They had a tough time with the Buffalo Bills, who are 4-1, who are number 6 in this week's NFL Power Rankings. So that is a good win. They beat them 16-10, and they beat the Redskins 33-7. So when you ask yourself, why does he have them at number 1? I have them at number 1 because they're obliterating the teams that they're supposed to beat. They're not letting teams hang around. They're decapitating them. Probably shouldn't use that term, but you guys get the point. The Patriots deserve to be number 1. Yet again, they was number 1 last week. They're number 1 this week as well. So they're the most potent, they're not the most balanced team, but they are good. Total yards per game, 378, that puts them at 12th. Passing yards per game, 279, that puts them at 6th. Rushing yards a game, 99, that puts them at 21st. 31 points per game they score, that puts them at 3rd. Third down completion percentage is 39%, that puts them at 16th. Hope you guys enjoy these videos, man. They're doing pretty good. That's why I keep coming back with the fire. I will see you guys for week 7. We are getting closer and closer to the Super Bowl. Now, we'll probably have to do a video on, you know, the MVP power rankings, because right now it's looking real spicy for Run CMC, Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott was in that running. Tom Brady was in the running, but these last couple of weeks, you gotta hold on to that. So I think you guys will tune in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because I will be back next week, and I'll see you guys then. Welcome to my channel, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.